Welcome to Ring Talk, Goodwin Boxing's own show. We're back. We've been away for a little while, but boxing's back, so we're back. With myself, Martin Theobald, and joining us soon will be Steve Goodwin. But I'm going to run you through some of the news that's relevant in the boxing world. We're going to start off with Goodwin Boxing's own K Prosper. Some of you may well have seen he's going to be boxing for the EBU super lightweight title out in Spain, in Catalonia, on March the 26th, live on Sky, live on the Zone around the world. Fantastic opportunity against Sander Martin. It's a winnable fight. It's a huge step up for Kay, but I mean, he's fought for and defended his English title. The British isn't available to him. He's going out for that European title, the proper European title, not one of these WBO European titles, not a flimsy European title, the proper EBU European title out in Spain. Phenomenal opportunity. Sander Martin, he's a legit fighter. 39 fights in his career, 37 wins. He can bang a bit. He's got knockouts to his name. He's beaten England's Joe Hughes in the past. So we know about Sander Martin, but for Kay, they probably don't know an awful lot about him. It's a great opportunity for Kay to go out to Spain live on Sky for all of his team. Great opportunity to go out and hopefully pick up that belt. March 26th, I'm sure Steve will be telling you more about it shortly. But yeah, what an opportunity. Elsewhere in the boxing world, Josh Warrington at the weekend took his loss and took his licks to Lara. Huge upset loss. Unknown Mexican Lara. Josh Warrington drops his titles for the bigger fights down the road against the likes of Kanju, Gary Russell Jr. They're all on hold. All plans on hold for Josh Warrington now while they consider the route back. Personally, I loved it. I've seen the matchmakers at Matchroom getting stick for it. I've seen people, I went wrong. Yeah, it did go wrong. It's an accident. Lara wasn't meant to come over and beat Josh Warrington, wasn't meant to come over and stop Josh Warrington. But let's appreciate it going wrong. All fans are liable to complain about one-sided cards, one-sided fights. Yeah, they typically are. But when one of them goes wrong, embrace it for what it is. It's a case of the British fighter didn't get the walkover they were hoping for. Not that I want to see Josh Warrington lose, but it just adds that intrigue and shows us why we love the sport once again. Kiko Martinez against Zelfa Barrett. We'll come on to later on the situation around judges, the situation around the sport in the UK, the situation around will overseas fighters want to keep coming back. Eddie Hearn had his rant about it straight after the fight. Personally, I had Kiko Martinez winning the fight, probably by maybe 2 rounds. Not how those judges saw it, and it's pretty terrible. It's a man's career, it's a man's livelihood. It's not a good look for the British sport. So yeah, that's the main news coming out of boxing for the week. There's the Matchroom card coming ahead this weekend. But yeah, we're going to hand over now with Steve, and we're going to preview that card. We're going to talk all things Goodwin Boxing. He's going to fill you in more about Kay Prosper against Sander Martin. Enjoy Ring Talk. Right, welcome. We're here with Steve Goodwin now. Steve, how are you?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. I'm, same 4 walls that I see 24 hours a day, but other than that, it's all right. How are you keeping? Because we haven't done this in a while, so people won't know what you've been up to, the financial business, the boxing side.
Financial business is really, really busy. I'm literally working flat out. Josh qualified as a financial advisor now, which is great news. So he's now doing first-hand meetings with me and doing the front of the end. He's learning, and he's
undefeated. Josh Goodwin.
Undefeated Josh Goodwin, 1-0. We'll never fight again. Undefeated financial advisor. But no, he's doing well, and we are extremely, extremely busy, which is great. And from the boxing perspective, there's not much going on. We've done the big fight for Kay Prosper, but there's not that much going on out there at the moment. There's a few fights for the odd box here and there, but we'll cover that as we go through. But it's a difficult thing. There's limited amounts to what you can do. You can try and chase fights for the fighters that really want them, but there's there's a lot of fighters chasing very few fights, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, we'll come on. I know there's a lot of questions we'll come on to later on about the current kind of state of the stable and what the future plans are, but we'll cover that in the Q&A so I don't miss anyone off. So before we get on to that, let's hit on the weekend. Josh Warrington, we'll start there. So little Mexican dude comes over, probably wasn't meant to win.
Wasn't meant to win. In the first round, I thought, what a mismatch. This is going to be over in a round or two. It's just what I thought. And I mean, the guy looked slow, clueless, technically limited. And you think to yourself, it's just a matter of how many rounds it lasts. And I think that's what most people thought. And then he hit him. And he really hit him. He had guts, unbelievable. And then he landed. And when he landed, the fight was all over. It was just then a case of, I mean, it should have been stopped in the fourth. I mean, you know, and I know Howard Foster's reffing this. Howard Foster from up north, Josh Warrington and his dad from up north. It wouldn't the other way around. It would have been stopped. So, but he let him carry on. He's obviously trying to do his, you know, Josh a favour. And I don't think letting him subject to another 5 rounds of that was particularly good. But my understanding is that Josh Warrington was ahead on the scorecards in the 9th round. So it was just a case of trying to get Josh to the end of 12 and win on points, wasn't it? True, and I just realised somebody who normally is quite clued up on it said that he was ahead. If that is true, then it was, you know...
if that's true, that's unbelievable. Because we'll come on to the Zelfa Barrett, Kiko Martinez fight. But if that is true, that Josh was ahead, that is...
If that is true, and we've got to say if, because we're relying on somebody who passes a lot of information to us, and normally it's 95% true. And if that is true, my God.
That's not incompetence at that point.
Well, it's just, it's just,
so
can I say something though? What I get sick of are people trying to find excuses for why Josh Warrington lost. I've had people texting me, go and for Christ's sake, accept he's got hit by somebody who was super tough, a Mexican. He hit him so hard that he never recovered. And give Lara the credit for the victory. There's no crowds. He was off. He wasn't concentrating. He just was beaten by the better man on the night. Irrelevant to the fact the man had no technique, really, and he could just hit. The man had balls of steel and deserved that fight, and people should praise him for that, not keep finding excuses to why Josh Warrington lost. And the one other thing I want to point out about Warrington, when you're involved in as many tough nights as Josh Warrington has been during your career, and it's may not be true, one day, it's one hard fight too many. And it just happens. Every fighter loses. Every fighter gets beaten because they take on that extra fight. And Josh has had, remember, he's come up the hard way. And even in small halls, he was having hard fights. So he's had a lot of hard fights. And perhaps this man was just one tough man too much. And that's how it is. And I know they're going for an immediate rematch. But if Lara hits him again, it'll happen again. It'll happen again. If he's able to box his way around it, I actually think Warrington will win the rematch, even though most times it goes the same way. But it wouldn't be impossible for Lara to do it again. Absolutely not possible. But he deserved. I want to say I think the man deserved it, and I felt. I mean, Josh Warrington's a nice man, but I think that guy deserved it at the end. He just deserved it.
I mean, the excuses element. To me, that narrative gets driven through the Sky commentary because I tweeted about it Saturday night. Adam Smith used a shoulder problem, weight, inactivity, no crowd. The best one, he started talking about Josh Warrington's twin girls as if they fucking appeared last week. They were there last time he fought. They were there when he fought Kid Galahad. They were there when he fought Carl Frampton. Those twins are not an excuse for Josh Warrington's performance. Josh Warrington's performance happened because he got clocked by that left hook that hit like a freight train.
Exactly that. And that's it. and he was winning. He was winning the fight up to then. He wasn't winning the fight in the 9th round, by the way, but he was winning the fight up to when he got hit.
Yeah. And if you look back through the recent, the performances of Josh Warrington, you've got the bloke he fought on the last Warren card before he left. I can't remember his name. French guy, was it?
Yeah.
You got Frampton. You've got Kid Galahad. You've got Lee Selby. None of those four are punchers. Like, Frampton, out of all of them, is the puncher, but he's not a renowned knockout artist, particularly. Certainly not up at that weight as well.
No.
And so this unknown, unheralded kid from Mexico turns up, who's clearly, technically not very good, but as you said, balls are still happy to stand there and trade with Warrington, who himself isn't a knockout artist, and backed himself with the punch. And to that end, he did the job. He did the job that Warrington couldn't do. And I found it disgusting personally that he was allowed to be in there from 4 to 9. And
agreed.
The fact that he left that fight with a perforated eardrum, he left it with a shoulder problem, he left it with a broken jaw. How much of that happened between 4 and 9?
And his dad's his corner man. So you'd hope that the dad would be more compassionate. But obviously, sometimes maybe not. I mean, you've seen some good corner work where they pull fighters out. I mean, there was another fight on there, the Ishmael Ellis, where John Pegg was in the corner against Dalton Smith. Now, John Pegg, brilliant corner man, knows his boxing inside out. What it was, he knew what was going on at the end of 3, just pulls him out. I know that Warrington, the stakes were higher, but you're better pulling him out and saving him for another day.
But were the stakes higher? There was no world title on the line.
No, but I suppose
the stakes any higher.
Ranking was a bit. No, I agree. I mean, it's look. I think also dads in corners can be great, as in Enzo Kawasaki, and there have been great dad trainers. But there are times in history where dads are not the best trainers for their fighters.
Yeah, because also it was quite evident from the 4th onwards, in my mind, Warrington was probably concussed from that 4th round onwards. So his best hope is a knockout. But you could see the fight gradually getting on top of him, on top of him, on top of him. Warrington, someone send a link on the bottom of this video to where Warrington has done a 1-punch knockout of anyone of note in the last 3 years, 4 years. Like that one fight turning punch. And the only one I can think of was when he clocked Frampton with the overhand right as he was walking in on him. But even then, that didn't knock Frampton down. It didn't stop the fight. What hope did Warrington have of turning that around between the start of round 5 and when the fight ended? How that fight didn't get stopped by the referee or by the corner at the end of round 4 is beyond me.
Maybe he just had to get to round 12, Martin.
Yeah. Enough said. Talking of which, Zelfa Barrett, Kiko Martinez. How did you score it?
I wasn't.
Did not score it. How did you feel about it?
Well, I felt. Well, I saw who the judges were, so I knew the result. I can tell by who's judging, not because anybody's corrupt. So I'm not saying for 1 second anybody's corrupt. I'm not saying that, but I can tell from who's judging when I'm looking at a fight whether a fighter needs to win. Now I'm going to say one judge here, Marcus McDonnell. Totally the opposite. Marcus McDonnell, just look back at his judging as a referee. Whether he's right or wrong, he judges as he sees it. If you look back at some of these other judges and just go back and look at their judging over a long period of time and look at how many controversial fights. Now, if it's a case, I would say this, if it's a case of just seeing a fight in one way, why do these judges never score these sort of contests 1-1-8, 1-1-1 for the away fighter? Every time there's this catastrophe of scoring, it's always for the home fighter.
And I completely get the notion that you see a fight differently ringside than you do at home. Cool. No problem with that. I completely get the notion that you see the fight differently sat 2 different sides of ringside. Because the amount of times you and I, during a fight, have met in the middle and gone, how have you got it? How have you got it? And we're 2 or 3 rounds the opposite way.
Yeah.
That happens quite often. But
We'd never score a fight like that 1-1-8, 1-1-1 or whatever.
From two different perspectives to score that 1-1-8, 1-12, 1-1-8, 1-11, whatever it was,
1-11,
from
yeah.
two different angles. No way. No way.
But unfortunately, you've got. I think it is that these judges lean towards the home fight because they know the home fighter. They know that it's better for British boxing if these fighters win. I think psychologically, they're looking to give them the rounds whenever possible. And I think the same judges always have this mindset. So I think the same judges time and time again, and there's about 4 of them, you look at it and think, oh, that's a home win.
Yeah. And what did you think of Hearn's comments afterwards?
I felt that he said it as he thought it. I mean, to be fair, give him credit for saying it. I mean, it's very easy for him to not say a word, but I thought what he said was true.
Do you give credit for saying it, or would you give credit for actually doing something about it?
We can't do anything about it.
Well, you say that, but you could. Like, so my theory on it is that saying anything about it as he did will do nothing, because the powers that be, and I was watching a Seconds Out interview with Hearn today where he was saying, actually, like, the board shouldn't be influenced by promoters, and that's right, they shouldn't be, because then that becomes a conflict of interest, which I get, I understand that. So if you're that unhappy with the performance and you're that, it damages the brand name almost of Matchroom to see something like that happen on a Matchroom show consistently. And he cited the last one anyone saw like this was Ritz and Vasquez in October.
Yeah. And look who scored look at the scorers of the Ritz and Vasquez fight. It's the same people.
And there haven't been that many shows between October and now. So actually, the percentage times that it happens is quite high based on that argument. But they're talking about the Dillian White fight perhaps not happening in the UK because Dillian White would have to quarantine coming back from his training camp in Portugal, and time-wise that may not work. So they might take it elsewhere. Why not take other shows elsewhere?
Cost.
I'm
You've
not
got to fly everybody out there. They've got additional cost of flights for everybody. You've got to fly referees. You've got to fly. There's cost.
Local referees. If the problem is that these local judges and referees are the issue, right now, you're not taking anything away from fans. I would get the argument normally. You want fans coming in. There are no fans coming in. So now's the perfect opportunity.
You want to give the board. You want to keep the money in the British. I guess you want to give the money to the boxing board. You want to keep all the taxes and the fees in this country. So I guess that's why they do it.
But do you want to? Because that's what I say about, do you give credit for talk or do you give credit for action? Because actually,
the action would be to move the fight to board and say we're not happy with the referee.
They're not happy with the standard of referee and the holding to account of the people that are doing it. Therefore, we can't back that scenario. We need to take it somewhere else. And actually, if that means that we get a better standard of judging, of officiating, etc., etc.
Yeah, that'd be fair.
That's my theory, is that actually if he was serious about it, you would take that and move the product somewhere else at a time when it doesn't get impacted by fans not attending.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. But again, it's still going to cost them money, and they don't want to spend money for no reason. They're running a business, aren't they?
Yeah, the reason is integrity. What does that count for in boxing, mate?
As we discussed. Yeah.
As we discussed off camera. Right. Moving on this weekend.
Yes.
Your ex-charge, Florian Marku, taking on Ryland Charlton.
Good fight, that. Good fight.
It's a brilliant fight, isn't it?
Really.
How do you see it go?
Okay, so let's look at the situation. I think the Florian's still got plenty to prove. He's obviously, he hits hard. He's very talented. But he was behind on the cards when he fought Tommy Broadbent at the O2 before he stopped him in the last round. So he may well have lost his defeated record there. However, in his last fight, I did think he won it. I don't think
Jamie Stewart won.
He won that. But I would have expected him to have got rid of Jamie Stewart a lot easier, bearing in mind that Stewart had no amateur experience. Florian has now changed trainers. He's gone from Don Charles to Clifton Mitchell since that fight. So whether that's a plus or minus, he's now entering this camp under a new trainer. Ryland Charlton, let me tell you a bit of background about him. He was homeless, sleeping on the streets. This kid has done everything the hard way. He is probably so motivated for this fight, it's unbelievable. I've always said that I think Florian comes into trouble with a mover. Ryland probably isn't a mover as such, so it'll probably be a head-on, and that does suit Florian. I think Florian will have more trouble when he finds a slick boxer who's got a good chin who can move. Ryland isn't that. But the second issue is that Florian was showing trouble in his last fight when he was being pushed back. So if Charlton can push Florian back, then that gives Charlton an edge. However, where they have been smart, Charlton is naturally a smaller man. So they're bringing Charlton up in weight. So that's a smart move. But it's not, this is no gimme. I actually think it's a real 50-50 fight. I think the bookmakers have got Florian at 4-6. I think it's probably about right. I think Florian is a slight favourite. It's not. There's no bet in this. Ryland is 6-4. I think they've got it bang on right. Florian's still got plenty to prove. Charlton did dispatch Joe Laws, but Joe Laws was coming like a lunatic and leaving himself open. So I just think it's going to be a really, really good fight, and any result is possible. Is it too?
What would you back? I know it's not one that you would bet on. But
let me say about what I believe about Florian Marku. I think Florian Marku could be very, very special, but bearing in mind he's got no experience. But in my opinion, it's my opinion only, he needed more development, and I think that he needed to be nurtured and he could have been. And whether these fights are the right fights for him, we will only find out. But I would say to you that I think Florian needed nurturing.
Whether he needed 50-50 fights this early in his career rather than not walkover journeyman jobs, but
yeah, I mean, and it shows that he can't be happy because he left one trainer for another. So he can't have been happy with his last performance wasn't great, and he's obviously moved on from trainers. So he's not even settled with the trainer. He's now got a new trainer again. This is his third trainer: Josh Burnham, Don Charles, and Clifton Mitchell. But you cannot say anything else. Florian is really, really, really talented, and has a lot to offer the sport of boxing. But it's not always. That is not always enough. You've got to be smart. And listen, it might be the right fight. We'll know on Saturday night. But I have my doubts.
I think the problem I have with it, from Florian's perspective, is that it's a very, very risky fight, and you don't get a lot for winning it.
No.
Like beating Ryland Charlton, I know you're not going to go down the standard routes with Florian because he's not British, so you can't go down that English-British title route. So you're going to be using WBA, WBC, IBF trinkets along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But beating Ryland Charlton doesn't do an awful lot for you.
No.
Whereas losing sets you back significantly.
And again, new trainer on the back of a poor performance against Jamie Stewart, which he won but never got the decision. I think, you got to look back at when we were matching him previous to this. I mean, we had him with 5 straights, and he did have problems with Broadbent, and that's why I knew there was an issue. So straight after Broadbent, we matched him with Miloslav Serban, who was just a tough, come-forward fighter. and you learnt from the Broadbent fight, and you've got to remember, under my charge, Florian was 4-0 with 4 KOs, right? And then he had Serban, who he won every round at the O2. So he was 5-0 with 4 KOs. And since then, he's had the Jamie Stewart fight. And, you know, I just think he could be so good. But I just hope that they've not gone wrong with the selection. I hope that they've got it right. And I hope that he's able to win and prove his.
You hope it's a breakout moment for him.
I hope so, yeah. But again, it's not. You know, I personally wouldn't have took the Stewart fight because, as I said to Kevin, I wouldn't have took the Stewart fight because I thought he was pretty average, but he just moves a lot. So to me, the Stewart fight was the wrong fight because we knew, in my opinion, that was not what we were looking for in his development at that point. Because you need to develop your learning and know how to deal with those fighters. And that would takes a little bit of time because, you know, remember, Florian is one tough man. He really is a decent fighter. He's a nice person, decent fighter, has everything in his arsenal. But he doesn't have it all yet.
He doesn't have experience.
No. Yeah. So I think he's in for a tough fight. I probably expect him to win, but I can't be. I wouldn't be super confident about that. Bearing in mind, as what I've said to you, a lot of changes. Not a settled trainer again, and everything else. It doesn't, but we'll see.
Yeah. Moving on. Most of the cards pretty poor, apart from
Johnny Fisher went Gordon heavyweight. So that's going to be Jordan Gill against the Mexican who's not very good. Robbie Davis against another Mexican these aren't good Mexicans. These are just traditional Mexican win at home.
We'll get told the narrative now that anything can happen because
Mexicans aren't that.
That's bought them 6 months of importing crap Mexicans. That.
Oh, you know, we've got 2 more this week. But the point is, these 2 that are coming in this week really are not. I mean, that's good matchmaking. That, you know, Jordan Gill and Robbie Davis both win this weekend, and it's just good matchmaking. But it's not. Again, the 2 fights I want to see are the Florian Ryland Charlton and the Avaneysan Josh Kelly. Yeah,
so go on, and Avaneysan Kelly, where would you, again, it's not one that you'd bet on, but where would you, if you gun to the head time?
Avaneysan, if I had to. He's the outside of the 2. I wouldn't be having a bet, but Avaneysan is tried and tested at world level. Josh Kelly has been, in my opinion, disappointing in recent times. And you can have all these flash moves, but what happens when you've got someone like Avaneysan who's super tough? I mean, the probable result of the fight is that Kelly will probably box his head off and win on points.
Josh Kelly 120, 108 gets dropped 4 times.
There you go. That's more because you got to remember in the fight, you know, if it goes to points, you know what happens. We know what's coming on points. We know that for a fact. So he's going to he'll get the close rounds. And I also think that Avaneysan could take a few rounds and get picked off. So I'd imagine Kelly going ahead on the cards in the early rounds. But I'd imagine Avaneysan possibly getting to him. And I think it could be a really good fight. But I'd back Avaneysan. But I genuinely, and I don't mean this, I don't think you can back any away fighter in the UK with any confidence.
No. And he's not a full away fighter, is he? In terms of he's managed by
Carl Greaves, Neil Marsh, but let's be realistic. Josh Kelly's a British fighter. He'll be more known to the referees, the judges, and despite, and I'm saying there's no corruption, but I'm just telling you that's how. And again, I would look at who the judges are. If I felt that Avaneysan was too big, and I looked at the judges and thought, that's different. But without knowing the judges, I couldn't bet on because you have to actually analyse the judges and then look at their record of judging before you actually, because otherwise you could be having a bet on somebody. Like anybody that bet on Kiko Martinez would feel frustrated. They weren't getting a fair shake of the dice and for roll of the dice, and the same thing here with Avaneysan. I think there's no confidence in certain judges because they they always seem to favour the home fighter.
They ought to do a panorama investigation into it.
We don't need another one of them, do we?
No, no. Boxing is recovering.
Mm.
Yeah, that, you know, without going into anything too much about it, from an outsider looking in on the whole Kinahan story, it doesn't paint boxing in a great light, does it? Not, you know, not to make any comment about any individual involved in it all, just as a sport, it's not a comfortable look, is it? It's.
I mean, listen, it hasn't given the sport good headlines. Daily Mirror ran a story this week. The Sun were running a story. An MP in Ireland's now going on saying the British government aren't doing enough. They're criticising the British Boxing Board of Control. All of this stuff's going on. It's just not a good look for boxing, is it? The way that it's paid. And I'm not going to get involved in the whole thing. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, it is what it is, but it's not good. It's not a good look. Boxing has not got good PR from that. And I think sponsors would be put off maybe to a certain extent from the sport now. And that could happen. Irrelevant to the rights, wrongs of the documentary, irrelevant to who's involved and what's true and what's not true, doesn't matter. It's not good for the sport of boxing.
Yeah, and I always think when my mum, unprompted, asks me questions about what's going on in boxing, that's not a good thing, because she has no interest in the sport. She might watch an Anthony Joshua fight, but when she is aware, because things are going through the mainstream BBC website, the BBC Sport website, it's on BBC TV, that's when there's a problem. I always use that as the tide mark, is does my mum ask questions about it? If so,
well, I'll tell you something that did happen to me, Martin, and this says it all, and I will say this. The amount of texts I got from my financial clients, my investors, after that Panorama program, has to leave me thinking, do I want to be involved in the sport? Because if you get involved, if you're, to a certain extent, if you want to be involved in this sport continuously, will that have a negative impact on my major business? And this is something that I will have, that any of us will have to consider, because I don't want my clients associating me with that sort of thing. And that's really an important thing. And I must have had 20 to 30 text messages from clients. Now, I don't think it's going to affect any of them, but you now, when you talk to new clients doing my job, you don't really want to tell them you're involved in boxing. That's quite sad. It's quite sad, really, because before you'd be able to have a chat about that, but I no longer think that's an actually good thing to advertise.
Not a selling point anymore.
Yeah, sad.
Right, let's go on to the Q&A, brighter things. From Better Q on Twitter. Can Phil Williams be pushed for the Southern Area title now it is vacant?
No chance.
I mean, Phil, I love Phil to bits. His record isn't going to lend itself to going after that title right now. I mean, when I say right now, I mean when the doors open and the rings are on. And
no. Phil would have to go away and get himself 4, 5, 6 wins on it. And then yes, but not with his record, which is, you know. So, but the Southern Area would never sanction Phil for Southern Area title. I mean, he got stopped in 3 rounds in his last fight by Cash Ali, I think. But Phil knows that as well. He's not done himself justice in some of his fights. But no, Phil isn't there to go and get. He will not get sanctioned for a title in any way, shape, or form at the moment.
Are you anticipating when small hall boxing comes back, and let's say 1st of January next year, just arbitrarily, because that makes it easier, all those vacant area title belts, and I don't know how many are vacant without looking through it. Is it going to be like a reset from the board, do you think, in terms of...
We've still got champions, so you'd have to identify whether those champions are going to defend it. And then if they are, then you'll have to, and if not, then the board somebody will put together fights for the vacant titles, and whoever can match 2 people together that would be acceptable, then would do it. So that would be something that the board would look at the time. But I think it's so far ahead that nobody knows for sure. There's going to be so much going on. I mean, we've got Southern Area titles, English titles still to stage that are there waiting to go, and we still intend to stage them.
Are you getting any pressure from the board in terms of staging them?
Nothing.
No, fair enough.
I know they're not being. The board the board are there to do the right thing. They're not doing that. They understand what small promoters are sitting with, and they know we can't put shows on like this. They know that. So
Yeah, that's fair enough. At least they're not, they're not trying to force it in some way.
not in the slightest. No, not in the slightest.
Other question: provisional first date for a show.
What have you got to say realistically? September has a chance. What is the chance? 30%? I don't know. You're so dependent on the government. It's so hard to ask a person in my position. We don't even know what Boris is going to do next week. We don't know when we're going to be able to fly abroad. We don't know when things are going to open. If you can't fly abroad, how the hell are you going to have 1,200 people in your call?
Yeah. Interesting one from Neil Shaw, who said, sorry if you think it's daft and ridiculous. Not at all, Neil. I quite like this question. Do you think the boxing world will be able to recoup any financial losses in time once COVID-19 has finally subsided? Recoup's probably going to be difficult, isn't it? Like if you figure what you would have made over time, but
losses are things that you would have sustained. So that would be, you've got to remember, most small hall promoters don't have a team of people. So there's just one man and his dog. So all that's happened is they're making their money elsewhere or doing second jobs. So let's look at the people that are promoting. Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, MTK.
Hennessy.
Now they made it. I don't want to go through everybody's financial scene, but you're either making money through TV or you're making money because you've got sponsors or benefactors. All of those would fall into one or two of those categories. So how are they functioning? It depends on the deals they've got. So it depends on whether they're running as a commercial enterprise or they've got benefactors. But the rest of people at small hall level, they're just people. Most promoters have got other jobs. Bo Pryor does awards contracts at Transport for London. People that do these things have got other jobs. I mean, so I don't think there are losses. The people that are suffering losses are probably those boxers who didn't have jobs, who were small hall ticket sellers who lived on their ticket sales and sponsorships. So really, the people that are losing wouldn't be necessarily promoters. I think it's really boxers that are losing the money. And for them, not recouping, they're never going to recoup, but some will never come back. And some will have gone and got jobs. And it's going to question how much they really, really want to be in boxing.
There was a question specifically about that, actually, so we'll come on to that shortly. From Heavens Above. It's not about ring girls for once. How does Steve explain the huge swing in judges' scores on Saturday night, 118, 111? Is that pure incompetence or simply corruption?
It's not corruption. It's not corruption. It is the mindset. I think it's the mindset of referees believing that they need to score for home fighters because that's where money comes into British boxing. And I think they feel that they're looking at fights without the independents. They wouldn't have scored it the same if it was an Argentinian against a Mexican.
Yep.
No way would they have scored it like that.
Yep. Sweet Thunder on Twitter. Given the state of Queensberry's accounts, so I don't know if people out there have seen this or not, somebody had screenshotted from Company's House the latest accounts from Queensberry. We'll ignore those because that's not really my area of expertise, although it is yours. I'm interested to know how much due diligence new fighters do before contracting with a promotion company. Do they think about the long-term fact that some of these companies hold no assets to enforce against if the worst happens? What a question.
Brilliant question. So the question is not what people like me think. This is a question about what fighters think. So let's park what I think. Fighters, no, they wouldn't even think about it.
Despite the fact that there's historically precedent of boxer A, who took promoter B to court won the case, but promoter B had nothing for them to take, nothing for them to pay out against. So promoter B might have folded that company and become promoter C themselves. So yeah, I mean, that scenario that he's laid out is legit.
I think I understand. I think it's a really good question. The question that he asked was, what do boxers ever question what about a promoter's financial means, credibility when they want to sign? No, they don't. I've never had that once asked of me. So they've never questioned that once. So I would say that no, they don't look at that.
I would suspect you could count on less than one finger the number of boxers that have looked up companies' house records prior to signing a promotional deal.
Whoever that may be with. And I think that's, and by the way, I want to say that comment doesn't apply just to one promoter, or there are several promoters that, because I don't think promoters easy, that have had things go wrong financially. But I think the question is, do boxers ask? They never ask. Never.
Yeah. And that's taking it away from the Queensberry question, just boxers in general. How many of them have ever opened up company's house before signing anywhere? I'm going to guess none. But it's as he says, due diligence. You would.
But then with due diligence about signing, then it's whether a boxer gets a good manager, then the manager will work through all those issues with them. The problem that you've got is boxers often, when they're getting to that level, they see the bright lights and they see the bright lights, or they appoint somebody else to advise them who may not give them the correct advice at that time.
Have their head turned.
Yeah, perhaps, or they make bad judgment calls, and then it all goes wrong for them, and they blame boxing politics when they retire, and the horrible thing of boxing when it's their own bloody fault.
Yep, it works both ways, doesn't it? Shaz on Twitter. Shaz, shout out Shaz. I hope you're well.
Good man. Does a lot for the sport, Shaz. Good guy.
He's a beautiful man, Shaz. He
is.
Yeah, he does so much that people won't be aware of. Recently donated a decent amount of money to the abseil that I'm doing with Andrew Fairley down in Portsmouth. Don't know if you've seen me doing that for Ringside Rest and Retirement Care Home.
But we helped to sponsor that one last year. We did. We gave Andrew. We've done a bit for Andrew last year with that.
Excellent. So yeah, I'm abseiling down the Spinnaker building in Portsmouth, which is about 350 foot high or something.
Not to you. I wouldn't do that for anything in the world. Don't do heights.
Yeah, it doesn't appeal massively. So if you'd like to sponsor, then please do. I will put a link on my Twitter, and you can find it there, because I don't look forward to it. But Andrew Fairley's doing so well with that. Like, he's such a good man. He's
another good man. There are some good people in boxing. There
are some really good people. Not very many of them, let's be honest. They're few and far between. But when you find them, they are brilliant people. Shaz, Andrew Fairley, multiple others. But going back to the question from Shaz. Steve has a large stable of boxers. What percentage does he feel will have to step away from the sport as a result of this lockdown and for financial reasons?
So if we exclude the fact that boxers get too old and have just gone past the time they can fight. So
yeah.
How many do I think will not fight again that's on my books? 10 to 15%.
I was going to go 20. So
probably could be that. That sort of number. So
yeah, and that's taking out the natural attrition of age and.
Yeah, and also you've got the fact that somebody might have started a family, have a baby, have to get another job, then they don't want to go back to this because they can't get the motivation anymore. So I think there's going to be a lot of that as well. So it could rise. I think it'll be 10 to 15% to start with, and it could rise as people find they can't get themselves back into it again.
Yeah, and also it may come back down as well when the doors open and fights start happening. People might return when they've otherwise kind of considered it over.
Yeah, exactly that.
Another question from Shaz. I've enjoyed some great nights on Goodwin shows. What is Steve's proudest boxing moment or achievement? P.S. Josh's debut win is off the table.
Well, I think I'm going to go for 2. I've got to go for 2 because they're joint. The first one is well, I think I'll this one. First one is Frank Buglioni. He came to me after being with Frank Warren, and he couldn't get anybody to sign him. And he came down to the office and saw me, and I said, well, if you sign with me, I'll get you a British title shot. I'm sure I will. And he said, really? And I said, nobody else can do that. I said, I'll do it for you. We got him a British title shot, and he went to Manchester and beat Hosea Burton, and he won that with the last round stoppage. And that was fantastic. The second one is a more general one, was taking somebody who was considered to be finished, gone, had lost 3 fights on the trot, was considered that never would win anything again, and taking Wadi Camacho back to being a record-breaking Southern Area champion, then winning a Commonwealth title and fighting for a British and Commonwealth title against Lawrence Okoli on Sky Sports. Now, I've got to be proud with that because I genuinely feel that in both those instances, nobody else but me and my team could have done what we did.
Yeah.
2 examples, and I genuinely believe that. And there are other times where boxers that I have had, I've watched their careers go down the spout, and I thought to myself, that's the opposite of that, thinking, you total silly fool, you have just gone and blown everything because you're so stupid. But the others, the 2 there, both Frank and Waddy, stayed with me to the end of their careers.
So now seems a good opportunity. I'm going to interject the Q&A and we'll touch on how high would K Prosper winning out in Barcelona rank amongst those things. So K Prosper fighting Sander Martin on Sky in March for the EBU, the proper European title, not some flimsy WBO European title. How high would K Prosper coming back with that title rank amongst?
That'd have to be up there because I took K, and you got to remember he only a few years ago he lost the Southern Area title against Rakeem Noble. Now Rakeem is a great fighter, so underrated, but you take somebody who'd lost the Southern Area to win the English title, defend the English title, and take him to a European title at the age of 36. Yes, he's got it up, he's against it. But if he went and won that would be amazing. That would be up there. That would be up there.
So let's touch on that then. K Prosper. How did this fight come about? So Sander Martin out in Barcelona, March 23rd?
Yeah. They were looking for an opponent for Sander Martin and we were keen to do it, but it clashed with Dylan White's fight, the same weekend as Dylan White's fight. So we were interested in it, but we couldn't do it. We knew the fight was there. We couldn't do it. So I said to Matchroom, we were interested in that fight, but we can't do it because it clashes with Dylan White's fight. And then I got a message saying, the fight's been delayed 2 weeks. So then we got on and we decided that we would go for it again because we'd already got the fight agreed. Because what I do is we put out fighters that are looking for big fights. We put their names out. And then if something comes up suitable, we take it. If we get offered a few fights, we turn them down. But yeah, we wanted, so this came available, but it just didn't work. But then it got rescheduled. So we took it. For Kay, he's 30, is he the favourite? No, he's 36 years of age. We don't know when boxing is going to get back to normal. He was facing a mandatory of his English title against Harlem Eubank, which wouldn't have been for great money. It would have been on IFL TV, and with all due respect, that's no real platform, and that's not being horrible to anybody. So that wouldn't have done anything for his career. This does. So really, we then had to choice because we either have to go through the defence of the English, or we get the shot of the European. So what we did was we managed to get this European instead of the English. So that was what I was trying to juggle for him, because if it went wrong for him and he didn't win, he can still come back to English level or above. It doesn't knock him out because this kid is very good. And if he wins, it'll probably get him a top 15 in the world ranking, and then anything can happen.
Yeah.
So he's got to take this chance because he's not 26, he's 36, and he deserves this opportunity.
So what happened? You're sat around the office one day, you get a text off someone at Matchroom saying,
no, we were tipped off that the European title was coming up. They were doing it. So when I knew it was, whenever I see something going on, let's say it's a weight that, I mean, I spoke to one of my other champions this week and I said, I think I might be able to get you this. I'm not going to discuss who it is. I think I might be able to get you this fight, do you want it? Let me know. And they haven't come back to me. So at that point, I'm not going to go for that fight because they haven't come back to me. But I'm always looking for opportunities and fights. And when I think there are, I'll ring the boxer up and say, look, do you want us to try and push you down this one? So we went for that with Matchroom. They came back and said, yeah, that's great, we'll do it. And this is the date. And we couldn't do the date because Xavier, his trainer's in Spain, Kay's stuck here. So in Portugal, Kay's stuck here. He was stuck. He was stuck. So that's what happened. And then that was the end of it. We forgot about it. And then we got a text saying, oh, it's been rescheduled. So we could then go back and negotiate for it.
So actually the opportunity gets engineered to some degree.
To a certain extent, because you're pushing your fighters' names out there who are looking for fights when there are fights available. So, I mean, fighters don't realise you're doing this. And they'll come and say, oh, I can't get a fight. Can I try and get one abroad? You're already doing it, but there isn't the volume of fights for everybody who wants to fight. They're not there. And even when there are, they're not necessarily want our particular fighter for that because they might be too difficult, too hard. I mean, Adrian Martin, one of the lads I've got who wants to fight, we've had 2 opportunities, but both times that we got them for him, got the fights, he was too overweight at the time, wasn't fit enough. So you have to be ready. If you really want to throw your name in the mix, then you've got to be ready so that when we get the opportunity, you've got to be ready to take them. But if you go back to the fighter who said they're ready and they're not ready, then because you're not going to often get 10 weeks notice for these fights. So you've got to be realistic. If a fighter comes to me and says, I want 8-10 weeks notice, you're not really going to fight probably.
So Kay's ready? Kay's good?
He's good to go, yeah. He's going to be ready for that. He's kept ticking over, been in training. So fighters that really want to fight have got to tick over. I mean, I had the same conversation with Brad Pauls the other day, and they've got to tick over. And if they tick over and are ready, then you can sometimes get these opportunities for them. But it's still got to be the right opportunities. But there's no point if the fighter's sitting at 7 kilos overweight because you're never going to be able to get those fights. And
how does the conversation go with Kay? When you start to engineer that opportunity, do you then say to Kay, right, do you want to fight for a European title against this geezer out in Spain? Yes or no? Is it kind of a simple...
And then you speak to his coach, Xavier Miller, and ask Xavier the same question. They both wanted to do it without a shadow of doubt, so we're in. That was really it. That's basically what happens. I discussed it with both trainer and boxer because it's up to the whole team that's involved to make that decision. For me, it was a no-brainer because I don't want to see Kay go another year and no opportunity otherwise. I don't want to see him defend his English for the 3rd time. You know, there was no point, and that's where it was heading because we weren't getting the problem with the British title was the King Ennis Brown's fighting Sam Maxwell. If Sam Maxwell wins, he's then got 9 months before he's got to face a mandatory. Kay's then 37. So it looks like the British title may be further away. So, and then he'll only get a voluntary, you know, and then you'd have to, and then it becomes complex because you have to tie up options, and he didn't want that. He's got this European title shot. If he wins, he's free. He's free as a bird. He's not tied in. He's not got any options with anybody. There's no rematch clause, no nothing. So if he wins, he wins.
What an opportunity.
Yeah.
What a brilliant opportunity. Live on Sky.
You never know, do you? You never know. Never know.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And it'd be your first European champion through Goodwin boxing as well.
We're keeping our fingers crossed. Listen, Kay can hit hard. Listen, we're in Spain. I can imagine we're not going to win on points. He's going to have to stop him to win. The kid's a good kid. He beat Joe Hughes comfortably. He's a good kid. But the end of the day, Kay is a classy operator, and you know, he has a chance. He has a chance.
He's not out of his depth.
No,
he might not be the favourite, but he's not out of his depth.
It's not unrealistic for him to go there and win. So he's a lot better than they would anticipate. There's not much. If you notice, we've not put footage of his fights up on YouTube. Haven't done it, so there's no footage for them to see. So that's good.
Yeah, brilliant. So we'll touch on that as the date gets nearer. Maybe try and get Kay on here as well. We can chat through it.
Absolutely, get him on.
Yeah, cool. So I digressed from the questions to go and hit on that. Seemed a good opportunity. Back to the questions. So I've rounded up some of the Brad Paul ones because I've got a couple. One from Tamsin Dillon on Twitter and the other from Better Q once again. We'll go with Tamsin's, but they're along the same theme, but she's a female, so she wins. With all adults potentially vaccinated by August, what are the chances of a Plymouth show nearer the end of the year? Brad Paul's headlining.
Well, there's a chance for a Plymouth show because we've got one booked in October. But whether that can take place or not is going to be totally outside our control. But we have a date booked in October. Whether Brad will be headlining or not, we've signed some real good, by the way, we've signed some really good talent down in Plymouth. Jamie Spates training some. We've got, he's now got a good squad down there.
Wiseman camp down there, haven't you, that way?
We've got Marley Dan's got a brilliant camp down there. Richard Grigg. So we've got a big bunch of fighters down there. So whether Brad headlines will depend on where we're sitting and where Brad is at that time. But of course, if there's the right fight for him, we'll do it. But October is such a long way away, and Brad may well have an opportunity before then. So we just don't know. And we don't know where we're going to be in this. We don't even know we can get on a plane yet. So how do we know if we're going to be able to do venues? We don't know.
Everyone go and get vaccinated. Everyone go and do that. Do your thing.
If everybody gets vaccinated, then it's the people that won't get vaccinated that are going to cause these problems going forward. Because that's
Josh Taylor.
Yeah. It's just...
Right. Speaking of Brad Paul, Brad sent in a question. With some fighters having not boxed the whole pandemic, say 2 years by the end, do you see them picking up at the level they left off, or warm-up fights due to ring rust and potential change in the ability to sell tickets, loss of interest in boxers, COVID worries, etc.? Legends, boys.
Do you know what? I've got to say, it's a brilliant question.
It's quite a thoughtful question for someone who gets whacked in the head, isn't it?
Really, Brad's intelligent. He's smart. So,
and he's good looking, and he can box, bastard.
What about the good looking bit? No, I can't have that. Can't have that.
That mask on, didn't he? Covers it up.
Right. The level, I think that's going to be different. I think most boxers are going to want to have a warm up before they go in. I think they're not going to want to go in with somebody who's been fighting for the whole period of time. So I think most boxers will want to warm up, and I don't blame them. I actually don't think tickets are going to be that big a deal. The average, if you look at the crowd of people that go to boxing, the age of the people that go generally are not the older age group anyway. And the older age group, if they're vaccinated and the vaccines work, it won't stop them going. I mean, I've had my vaccine now. It wouldn't stop me going if I know that I can't die from it, I just might get ill from it. I think the biggest thing is going to be that if you've got a load of people that are not vaccinated, and the rules are that you have to be vaccinated to get into an arena. So if people all get vaccinated out there and we all get a country that is vaccinated, I would hope we'll get back. And I actually think, this is me personally, I think ticket sales will be better than ever. Now, the reason behind this is you have got people that have lost out during the pandemic. You have got people that have really not done very well, and they've slipped through the net. So I accept people, but the majority of people out there have done well. They've ended up banking money. They've been on furlough. They've ended up with pots of money in the bank. The amount of money in savings accounts in the UK has gone up by an astronomical amount in the last 12 months. So there's a hell of a lot of pent up spending to be done. I actually believe the economy, this is talking about financial world, I believe the economy will boom. I think that And I think that people's appetite for going out will be better than ever because people appreciate more. I don't think ticket sales are going to be a problem. I think ticket sales will rocket. Initially, there'll be a honeymoon period where everybody wants to go and do things. But as to whether boxers want to go into fights, that's difficult because I think boxers they've not done as much sparring. They've had time off. Their time is not going to be there. You know, is Brad, for example, going to want to go in a real meaningful fight when he's had so much time off? That's a question you'd have to ask the boxer. Our job as manager is to listen to what the boxer and trainer said. I think you're going to have a split. Someone like Jack Hughes, he'll just want to go straight back in and have a big fight. So I think you're going to have some boxers who say, no, put me in, and other boxers who go, give me a warm-up first. But we're happy as a manager, and my job is to do whatever suits that individual person. And I believe I'll be dealing with a totally different spectre of fighters. Now, give you an example now. I've got fighters, take Brad. Brad's desperate to fight, right? And he's desperate to fight. Linus isn't. Linus's view is, I'm going to sit here. I'm in a great position. I'm still young. When it comes back, I'm going to resume who I am. I don't want to take the wrong fight for the wrong money at the wrong time. I want to take the right fight for the right money at the right time. And if it means I don't box till the pandemic is over again, I fought Harding, that was a bonus. I'm going to sit and wait. I'm not going to take the wrong contract for the wrong money at the wrong time.
Yeah. Now,
Brad's attitude might be, I so need to fight. And he will say, no, sod that, I just want to fight. And there are boxers out there that Adrian Martin wants to do that now. He just wants to fight. So there are fighters out there that are going to sort of say, look, if I'm not getting the right money, it's not as good a money, or I just want to fight. So that's up to a fighter individually as well. For me, a boxer that's got a great career should not be impatient at this time.
As long as they've got the years on the clock available. And
as long as you've got the years on the clock available, then don't be impatient because it's all going to come back. But a lot of people, there will be a lot of boxers that have taken fights that shouldn't really have done during this pandemic, whose career is going to be ended or finished by the end of the pandemic. Because let's say, for example, I'm going to give Brad an example. I'm not saying he's going to do this, but I'm just going to give an example. Brad has got everything. He's got a fan-friendly style. He's got charisma. He's got a good chat. He's very much appealing to the public. He's a TV fighter in the waiting. He sells massive amount of tickets, definitely down in Cornwall. Now, as it stands, he's built up a massive momentum, and it can only get bigger. Let's say he goes and takes a silly fight because he wants to fight, and he gets beat, whether it be live on BT or on IFL TV, and he loses because he took the wrong fight at the wrong time for the wrong money. He won't ever recover to the level that he was before because that big support base that's behind him believe he's a big punching, exciting middleweight. If he goes and loses because he does the wrong thing and he's not patient, that will be hard for him to recover. Harder for him to recover than it is for the guys at the start. But that's down to him, not to me. He tells me what he wants to do and I do it. Now, I wouldn't have a problem. It's like when Linus fought John Harding. That was the right fight. So if Brad had been offered the John Harding Jr. fight, we'd have grabbed that because Brad would have knocked him out as well, stopped him as well, I'm sure. So it depends on what's being offered. But when you're talking about the fighters at middleweight at the moment, the fights that are on offer are either worth nothing, they're just pointless fights, hard fights for very little money against these Uzbekistani Olympians, or you're going in with these real tough fighters. You might get Denzel Bentley, Heffron, and it might be Heffron for not that we offer that. And why do you want to take those fights if the money's not right and the thing's not right at this time? So it's a real difficult one. And Brad, like all other fighters, have to assess this. And my job is, I've made fights during this pandemic that I really didn't want to make. But I had to because I was being asked to do it.
One day we'll reveal what they are.
Yeah, we'll talk about it one day.
Right, 2 questions left. One of them from Rakeem Noble, we mentioned earlier.
I know he's one of the nicest guys, one of the most underrated fighters. He was a round away from beating Tommy Coyle.
He broke Tommy Coyle's fucking cheekbone, didn't he?
And all he done, Tommy Cole was in trouble in that fight, bad trouble, and then Raheem left himself and got caught in the next round. If he hadn't got caught, he could have beaten Tommy Cole. His career could have been in a different trajectory, and he could have come back. Brilliant fighter, just so underrated. Anyway, carry on.
Outside of all that, he's also a brilliant man, lovely bloke, and a character. Like, he's an actual character. He, he's now a dad as well, isn't he? Congratulations. But he's got his own YouTube channel going on, of boxing stories, which are really fascinating to watch. So check him out, Raheem Noble. And shout out to Kugan Cassius on becoming a dad as well. Congratulations. But Raheem Noble, due to having a large stable and the majority of fighters not having fought since 2019, will we be seeing fighters being matched with one another a lot sooner in their careers, or possibly prize fighter style tournaments?
So I think, go back to what I said before, I don't feel there's any necessity to do that, because I don't actually feel, to me, it's like having just a little gap and then can come back. And I don't see why you can't resume where you were. I don't see why your journey has to be any different when you come back, unless age is an issue.
Yeah, you don't have to expedite it to the point.
I don't see why. Unless age is a problem, then you don't, in my opinion, why do you need to do that? And why do you need to go in with, I don't feel that, if I'm right, the ticket sales are not going to be an issue and boxing could be an even bigger sport, then why do you need to change the path you were on? That's my view.
Yeah. Alan Curtis on Twitter. While it seems likely that Felix Cash won't be fighting Denzel Bentley, so that was ordered by the board for the British and Commonwealth, seems unlikely Felix Cash will go and fight on BT, but we'll see. Will Linus be offered the shot? And start there. Will Linus be offered the shot?
Well, that would be down to the Boxing Board of Control. I haven't lobbied for it. So from that point of view, what happens as a manager, the board will decide who they make mandatory, but it's up to, but managers or fighters can lobby for things if they are asked to, want to, or anything else. I haven't lobbied for it. At the moment, I don't know if Felix Cash is withdrawing, but I haven't lobbied for it on any eventuality anyway. But the board will make a decision as to who they nominate, and I guess what they'll do is make another fight for Bentley if Cash withdraws. The other thing could happen is Frank Warren could go to the board with a ready-made fight if Cash withdraws, and the board may well sanction that. So that's really what happens here. Yeah. So it's really up in the air. But no, it's not up to me unless I lobby. I can lobby the board. Doesn't mean we'd get it. They consider every single manager that lobbies something. It's to say if you've got a good reason, then they will consider it. But I haven't made any active approach for it.
Okay. Alan's other question: do you promote Yusuf Kamari anymore?
No, I didn't promote him. I managed him, and his contract came to the end of its 3 years. And what happened was the pandemic was here, and Dylan White offered him, because he can get him on a Sky show. So from Yusuf's point of view, it made more sense. He went for the short-term game, which I understand, no problem at all, because he's a lovely kid. So he signed with Dylan White, and as a result, he's got his shot against Kane Baker on the Dylan White undercard.
Good fight, that.
Good fight. So that was really what happened with Yusuf. I mean, I've done a great job with him. Nobody would say any different. But he was, in this particular scenario, he was offered a quick fix to his boxing requirements, and he gets a shot on Sky. And I couldn't have got him on that show. Dylan White, when he owns that show, can therefore go to a boxer and say, sign with me, I'll get you on my undercard. And therefore that's what's happened there. Now, obviously, the negative of that is that if things go wrong and Dylan White loses again and he stops owning his undercards and he stops, then it becomes a bit more problematic. Yeah, because then somebody else will come into the pay-per-view cycle and they will then own the shows, and then they will, to a certain extent, own the undercards. It's changing. So then it becomes a different job. It's quite an easy job when you can just sign a boxer and get them on your undercard of your shows. You're not really having to navigate or build careers as such, are you, at that point? What he has, well, I'll say, by the way, that Dylan has done a good job with is Fabio Wardley. Yes. I mean, he's done a great job with Fabio Wardley. He was supremely talented and has got loads of opportunities. And Fabio is one of my favourite young heavyweights out there, so he's done a good job with him. But I wish Yusuf all the best. What's important about Yusuf, and I want to say this now, this was no breakup or fallout. It was the end of the 3-year agreement. There was no, we spoke about it. I totally understood it, and it's no problem from my end. There are other fighters that don't do things the right way and behave badly. Names will not be mentioned today, but Yusuf is not one of them. So good luck to him.
Final question, John Bailey. Has Steve held talks with York Hall in regards to how they will operate on their return? Are they looking at a proof of vaccination, etc.? I assume Steve will not consider an indoor show without 100% capacity.
That's true. As it stands for York Hall, for sure, you need 100% capacity. York Hall really is not the problem at this stage. The problem is the Board of Control and the government. So whilst the Board of Control want bubbles, that knocks us out, and COVID testing, there are options to do shows, dinner show type scenarios, but not at York Hall because the cost is too prohibitive. But there are other options that I have in the pipeline. But York Hall isn't one of them. And to go back to York Hall, you would have to run 100% capacity, or you just could not make it financially work. But no, York Hall are not even worth speaking to. They're going to be driven by the government. We're going to listen to the, it's all totally out of our control. We're just
there's stuff like vaccination passports isn't going to be your decision, isn't going to be York Hall's decision.
It's going to be government decision. If it's vaccination passports, that's fine. Then we implement vaccination passports, and only people getting with vaccination passports. It's quite a simple thing to do. But then you are waiting until everybody's vaccinated because everybody's got to have that chance.
Yeah.
Again, you can't operate you can operate your call at low capacity if you're prepared just to lose money. I'm not prepared to lose £10,000, and none of the promoters I work with are going to be happy to lose £10,000 on stage in boxing. I'm not being funny. You can do, you throw £10,000 down a toilet. There's not a lot of point, or burn it. There's not a lot of point doing that.
Yeah, right. That's all the questions. It's been a long one. But we've been away for a while. So next week we'll be back. We'll review what's going on at the weekend. There's boxing every weekend for ages now, isn't there?
It's good. Some good stuff. I'm really looking forward to it. I think there's some good stuff coming ahead. So no, I'm really looking forward to what's coming up over the next few weeks.
Real right. So we will see you next week. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you for returning.
Brilliant. Thank you. Cheers, Marty.
Cool. Take care.
Thanks a lot, mate. Bye-bye.